everybody, how's it going? I want to talk about some of the stories we've been hearing about lately regarding women who have been found after walking away from their families. This includes their then husband, children, etc. And I made a post about this in one of the Facebook groups, and I always say, unless you've walked a mile in that person's shoes, you should not judge them. And some of the women in one of these parental estrangement groups, etc., basically tore these women a new one. And what a terrible mom she is, and how dare she, and she left her children in the hands of an abuser. And I wasn't in their situation, so I don't know what that person went through. But I have to wonder how excruciating that decision had to be, where she believed she would have to fall off the face of the earth and erase her identity in order to escape whatever she had endured. I know for a fact, and from personal experience, how challenging it is to leave a situation which includes domestic violence, terror, etc. And in my situation, I was the one who was abused. But my children were not. They did not suffer the same fate I did. It was always directed at me. And even when I was abused and I was with someone for close to a decade, I didn't tell anyone. Not throughout the first 8.5 years. And then after that, I remember we finally got the internet, and it was dial-up, and I was playing MSN games or Yahoo games or something, and I was kind of telling virtual strangers that I was in a desperate situation, and someone said, you have to tell. And I finally did. I finally got the balls to tell, but I remember how terrifying it was when I had to ask my then spouse for a divorce. It was really rough. And so we don't know what these women have been through. And I can imagine why it's so challenging, why they don't want to be identified today. I'm sure they have lived quiet lives since they walked, and I'm sure they struggled probably to reestablish themselves with maybe an alias, etc. And I just want to say, I understand what they've been through. And I want to say, if we look at society in general, and I've shared this as well, when I got divorced, my then ex-husband would only watch our daughters when I worked, which meant I think he worked until 3. He'd come over from 3:30 to just before I got home, and then he'd take off and leave, and it was more or less babysitting. And he never had them weekends or holidays, etc., for the first maybe 6 to 8 months, until I said, I really need our girls to be with their dad, because it's important they had a relationship. And so after that, that went on throughout the separation portion of our situation. And then when we got divorced, he informed me he would only come the 3rd weekend of the month, and then it would be only the 3rd Saturday of the month. But nobody tore my ex a new one. Nobody said he was the worst person in the whole world. It's just the way it was. And so sperm donors or fathers that walk away from their children are never burned at the stake. It is the way it is. And a lot of women not a lot of women, I'm saying not all, but some women end up with 90% custody. Their ex goes on to live another life, have, get remarried and have children, etc. And I'm not saying women don't do it, but I see more men with freedom and less judgment than any woman I've ever seen before in my life. So before we burn these women at the stake, understand it, that there is a double-edged sword. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and women have been living under a microscope since the beginning of time. There's just a different standard, and that's just the way it is. So I choose not to judge these women. Although I chose to stay, it was not easy. Even after our divorce, it was heck. Why? Because if you get divorced from someone who is not kind, when they get a hold of your kids, they'll make sure that they target your children, and they will do it to hurt you. And that's just the way it is. So anyways, that's all I've got. I hope this helps, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.